Good morning, Americans. This is your favorite alien here on the Saturday, December 9th, 2023. Stand by for a special commentary. This is a message to both Republican and Democratic voters and members of the party. You Democrats are extremists on the left and you Republicans are extremists on the right. Whatever happened to the conservative and the central Democratic people and Republican? You need those. You can't run a country on extremism. Although you tried a few times. Heck, you even tried to run it under xenophobic-ism, as you called it, back in the early 20th century. But you parties have messed up this country terrible. You Republicans who are Trumpers to the core. Here's a message from me about Donald J. Trump. He's been saying since 2015, the elections are rigged. And since 2020, the election was stolen. Really? Well, let me give you an example of 3 elections that you've had in your history, Americans, that were rigged or stolen. Okay? The first one is 200 years ago, 1824. The persons that were running for office, the top 2 anyway, was a Democrat named John Quincy Adams, Secretary of State under James Monroe. And by the way, he wrote the Monroe Doctrine. If you know what that is. Okay, he was a Democrat from Massachusetts. Another Democrat, because there was no other party. It was just Democrats. But they didn't see eye to eye on anything, just like you Democrats don't see eye to eye on anything in here. Otherwise, you wouldn't have Jeffries in our House as leader of the Democrats. Oh, boy. That's worse than McCarthy for the Republicans. Pardon me, I choke every time I say Republican, and I kind of want to gag every time I say Democrats. Anyway, if I could vote, and I'm a resident alien from Panama, and an illegal alien from another planet to boot, although I don't know, I'm a permanent representative or a permanent resident alien from Panama, but there's no paperwork to fill out for an illegal alien from another planet, so I couldn't fill that out. But if I had the right to be a United States citizen and vote, I would vote for 2 people, Clinton Cadena Hopper or Freddie the Freeloader, because neither one of your candidates this year amount to anything, and they'll destroy your country. Both have, and both have proven it. Biden's doing it right now. Trump did it, and oh boy, 2017 to 2021. Especially January 6th, huh? Oh, but that's a different story. Well, here we go to the election of 1824. And, Andrew Jackson was upstart. He made his fame in the Battle of New Orleans in 1815. And by the way, the war was over by then, but you still fought the war, huh? The battle, huh? Oh, yeah. Remember the Guardsmen? We went down the Mississippi, remember? Oh, I loved that Guardsman, man. They made a good song out of that. Well, and that was a vicious election, by the way. You think the elections today are vicious? Woo! Check out the campaign posters and the slogans from 1824. Ooh, boy, were they... and there was no national TV or anything like that. And they were vicious, big time. And it was fought by surrogates because neither John Quincy Adams or Andrew Jackson made an effort to go in there. The trains weren't there. They were starting to build the trains, but they were like the airplanes doing the Wright brothers, smash, bing. Nobody wanted to ride them, right? Well, anyway, so at the end of the election day, it ended up in a tie. There was no effective winner. So the election was thrown into the House of Representatives. Now, you must understand that John Quincy Adams was a member of the House before he became Secretary of State. And after he left the presidency, he went back to the House. So the House was his stomping grounds, okay? Andrew Jackson was not a politician. He was a rough man and very bad president, too. But well, that's a different story. But anyway, and in the House was controlled by, you guys got your senators from Kentucky here, McConnell on the Republican side, and also Rand Paul on the Republican side. And you Democrats hate him with a passion. Some of you Republicans hate him big time. Yoo-hoo! Well, Henry Clay was no different. Except that he had something that neither McConnell nor Rand Paul had. Power. And big time power. Okay? He hated John Quincy Adams. Oh boy, did he hate Quincy Adams. But not as much as he hated Andrew Jackson. And he knew what Andrew Jackson meant. Okay? So he threw his support, and it might have, can you imagine Henry Clay doing this? Throwing his support behind John Quincy Adams. Whew, that must have been a bitter pill to swallow for Henry Clay. But he did. And the House of Representatives voted John Quincy Adams as the next president of the United States in 1825. Okay? Now, I would refer to Andrew Jackson as the 19th century version of Donald J. Trump because he was bad. And had the same type of stupid thinking that Donald J. Trump has today. Oh. And he swore after the results of the election of 1824 that he was going to come back in 1828 and take everything and throw away everything, including the Charter United States Bank, which he hated with a passion because it cost him a few money, okay? A big time. He was going to destroy the United States system, and he did later. So John Quincy Adams became president in 1825. The election of 1828 was the same election with those two guys again. Just like 2024 is a repeat of 2020. But in that time, Andrew Jackson had run all over the country, and whatever he did underhanded, he had the people, the bad people. But they could vote, but they were bad. So he had overwhelmed John Quincy Adams' supporters, which he didn't have many except for Henry Clay. And Henry Clay was a tacit supporter because they hated each other. Okay, well, in 1828, with all these bad people, just like Donald J. Trump had in 2016 and didn't account for in 2020 and will have in 2024, bad, he routed John Quincy Adams in the 1828 election, became president for 2 terms, and disaster struck. He eliminated the United States Charter Bank, and you wouldn't have another bank until early in the 20th century when the robber barons decided to create the system that you have today with a reserve note, okay, and the federal the Fed, and the reserve notes. That was created by the robber barons. So that ended up the election, and when Mr. Jackson left office for the last time in 1837, you had a depression worse than the 1929 depression that you guys remember. Oh, there was two depressions that were worse than 29. 1837 was number one, and 1873 was number two, and 1907 number three. But number three wasn't as bad as 29, but it was close. But the 1837 election, the depression, oh boy. Ugh. Check your history books about that one. That one was tough. Tough. So Van Buren had a heck of a time in his one term because, oh boy, that depression really sucked everything he needed out of that one. The next bad election you had was 1876, where the candidates were Rutherford B. Hayes for the Republicans. Sorry. And Samuel Tilden for the Democrats. And as it turned out, it was an election that didn't have a winner, and you couldn't throw it into the House. And you had 19 electors that, were in states that were still controlled by the United States under the Reconstruction policy. Yeah, especially Louisiana. Oh, boy. Louisiana. Huey Long State. Oh, boy. Yeah. That one and South Carolina are two bad states. But anyway, the Democrats and the Republicans went into the back room. There was a lot of cigar smoke in there. Oh, can you imagine how it was in there? Yeah. And they came out with what they called a plan. And in that plan, the Republicans said they wanted the presidency and they gave up the South. So the Democrats began their Jim Crow laws in the South. The Redeemers, as they used to call themselves instead of Democrats, eventually called the Dixiecrats. Okay, so Rutherford stole the election from Tilden because of the Democrats allowed them to in that famous compromise of 1877. Read that compromise, huh? So the election was stolen from Tilden to Rutherford by the Republicans. They got their presidency, but the Democrats got the South, and 100 years of bad luck. Oh, boy. Yeah. The next election was the election of 1896. You had a good orator, but bad person, named Jennings. William Jennings Bryant, was the candidate for the Democratic side, and William McKinley, Mr. Fat Guy, was a candidate for the Republicans. But there was a problem here, because Mr. Bryan, William Jennings Bryan, was an orator. He could be like Hitler and make the people, yeah. So, and he was anti-robber barons. And the big guys at the time, they were the robber barons. Rockefeller, Carnegie, got together and said, we got a problem here. We hate each other, yeah. And don't forget J.P. Morgan was another one in there. There was four of them. But all four decided, we hate each other, guys, and we wanted to throw each other out of business, which they did. Okay. And this was J.P. Morgan talking. But if, what's his phrase, Bryant gets elected, we've got a problem here. So they decided to buy themselves a president. I mean, buy. So everybody who voted for William McKinley got paid. Big time paid, okay? And William McKinley won that race in 1896. So they were saved, so they thought. William Jennings Bryan had lost his luster in 1900. McKinley won again, and they thought, oh, we were saved. But they had a pain in the neck guy, which the four of them got together. And we can't buy this election, but we can sure shut this guy up. And ordered the Republican Party to put him as the second banana in the second place. Yeah, you guys know who it was. Teddy Roosevelt. Oh, yeah. Now, Teddy didn't like one of the guys in particular. John D. Rockefeller. Oh, he hated him with a passion. So when old fat guy, William McKinley got shot in Buffalo in 1901 in September, a couple of months later, because he lingered because of the doctors, they saved him. They took all the bullets out, but they didn't have any antibiotics or anything to combat the wounds and the infections, and that's what killed William McKinley. It wasn't the bullets, it was the doctors. And the lack of knowledge that you have today. But anyway, he died, croaked, bye. And old Teddy became president, and he went after, with a big passion, Standard Oil and John D. Rockefeller, and destroyed Standard Oil, he thought. He chopped it up into different pieces. Standard Oil of Ohio, Standard Oil of California, Standard Oil of Michigan, Standard Oil of Ohio. Yeah, you know what I mean. But each one of those little companies, Mr. Rockefeller got a little piece of. Not the big piece, but a little piece. But Rockefeller was rich, okay? And by the end of the breakdown of Standard Oil, he was 10 times richer. So who won? In my opinion, Mr. Rockefeller and not Teddy. So you see, there's 3 rigged elections by different means. Americans, rigged. So what I'm saying is, if you don't vote for either Clem Cadita-Hopper or Freddie the Freeloader and tell these 2 parties they got to change their way of business, you are in trouble with your democracy. This is your favorite alien. Good day.